They were a newlywed couple, living happily, when they suddenly disappeared without a trace. As the police launched an investigation, a series of strange details emerged: mysterious messages, an ex-lover with a haunting past, and clues leading to a terrifying conspiracy. This became one of the most bizarre missing persons cases in South Korea, sending shockwaves throughout the nation. So what really happened to them? On May 31st, 2016, a Tuesday, a man arrived at a local police station in Busan, South Korea, to report a troubling incident. He looked extremely worried and told the officers that his son and daughter-in-law had gone missing and were completely unreachable. He pleaded for the police's help. His son and daughter-in-law had been married for just over 6 months. The husband, Geun, was 34 years old and owned a small shop in Busan. His wife, Choi Seong-hee, was 33 and a well-known theater actress in the city. John's father told the police that the previous day, he had gone to his son's shop to look for him, but he was nowhere to be found. The employees said they hadn't seen John since May 28th. The father had tried every possible way to contact his son, but received no response. It had already been 3 days without any sign of John, and the father felt something was terribly wrong. That's why he decided to file a missing persons report. Upon receiving the report, the police immediately dispatched officers to the couple's apartment for an investigation. As soon as they opened the door, a dog ran out. John's father explained that the dog was deeply loved by the couple. If they were leaving for an extended period, they would never leave it behind. Inside the apartment, everything appeared clean and well organized, with no signs of struggle or forced entry. The scene looked completely normal. Leftover food was still on the table, dirty dishes remained unwashed in the sink, and even a shopping bag sat unopened on the table. With the father's consent, the police searched the apartment and discovered that 4 key items were missing: Choi's usual outfit, a laptop, their wallets, and both of their passports. Based on the scene, it seemed the couple had left in a hurry, taking only a few basic clothes, their wallets, and passports, suggesting they might have planned to travel abroad. However, after checking immigration records, the police confirmed that neither of them had left the country. The next step was to review security footage from the apartment building's elevator. The footage showed that between the night of May 27th and the early morning of May 28th, both of them had been recorded entering the building. On May 27, 2016, after attending a rehearsal for a new play at the theater, Choi didn't go straight home. At around 10 p.m., she stopped by a supermarket to pick up some household items and groceries. Security footage captured her entering the apartment elevator at approximately 11:31 p.m. She appeared calm and natural, holding a shopping bag with the items she had just bought. At around 3:45 a.m., Jeon was seen in the elevator, also looking completely normal. The reason for his late return was that he had been out at a gathering with friends. However, what puzzled the police was that while they had clear footage of the couple entering the apartment, there was no footage of them ever leaving. This raised a critical question. The couple lived on the 15th floor of the building, meaning they would almost certainly have used the elevator. But strangely, there were no security recordings showing them exiting the building. What happened to them after they entered their apartment that night? This apartment complex had a total of 22 surveillance cameras, all of which were functioning properly. The police reviewed all the surveillance footage, but found no images of the couple leaving their apartment. They had entered their home but never came out, and there was no trace of them inside. The place seemed like a mysterious locked room scenario. The unusual nature of this missing persons case quickly caught the attention of the Busan police. As a result, additional officers were deployed. They conducted an on-site survey to assess the placement of the surveillance cameras in the building and discovered that the 22 cameras did in fact have blind spots. However, leaving the building unnoticed would not have been easy. The couple would have had to walk down 15 floors, stay close to the walls, and navigate through the camera blind spots to avoid detection. Without prior planning, this would have been extremely difficult to accomplish. The police then examined the surveillance footage from the apartment's parking lot, but they discovered that the couple's car was still parked in its original spot. The parking lot cameras never captured any footage of them appearing. But if the couple didn't drive away, how did they leave the area? The police decided to expand the investigation. They pulled footage from all the nearby bus station cameras, hoping to find new leads. They even reviewed surveillance cameras at the train station, but still, there was no trace of the missing couple. These findings only deepened the mystery surrounding the case. However, the police uncovered new clues by analyzing the couple's SMS messages and call history. May 28th, 1:07 p.m. Jeon texted his business partner, telling him that something was happening at home and that he would be closing the store for the day. May 28th, 11:06 p.m., Choi sent a message to her theater group stating that she was feeling unwell and would not be able to attend rehearsal the next day. May 29th, 8:28 a.m. Jeon transferred the restaurant's operating funds to his business partner via bank transfer and called to inform him that something serious had happened at home, preventing him from coming to the shop for a few days. When his partner asked what was wrong, Jeon did not answer. He simply said that he would update him once things were resolved, and then quickly hung up the phone. May 30th, 6:20 a.m. Choi sent a message to a close colleague from her theater group. "Sister, I'm not feeling well right now and won't be able to perform. I've been hospitalized again, just like last time. I deeply apologize for this situation. I can't make calls or send messages from the hospital right now. I'm really sorry." At this point, the police paid close attention to the wording in Choi's message. She mentioned, "just like last time." In reality, Choi had a history of depression and had even attempted to take her own life in the past, but was unsuccessful. Because of this, when her colleagues received the message, their first reaction was to assume that her depression had relapsed. They didn't suspect anything unusual. They simply responded with messages of concern, asking about her condition. But she never replied. On May 31st at 10:57 a.m., Jeon called his wife's theater group and informed them that she had been hospitalized due to health issues. He said that her mental state was not stable and she would not be able to return to work for a while. After that, he hung up. Based on the text messages and phone calls, it appeared that Choi's illness had suddenly relapsed, prompting her husband to rush her to the hospital. But why did they choose to hide their whereabouts and avoid all surveillance cameras? That behavior was highly unusual. All of Choi's communication with the outside world had been through text messages. No one had actually heard her voice. Jeon, on the other hand, had made his last phone call on May 31st, speaking directly to the theater group. This confirmed that he was still alive on May 31st. However, since no one had heard Choi's voice, the only certainty was that her phone had sent the messages. Whether she had actually written them herself remained unknown. As the police continued their investigation, Jeon's father suddenly reported a surprising development. He had managed to contact his son. On June 2nd, he received a text message from Jeon saying that he was safe. However, the father refused to disclose the details of the message and urged the police to stop investigating to avoid disturbing the family. Following the couple's disappearance, Choi's family never stopped searching for her. They asked for information everywhere, contacted the police, and did everything they could, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Jeon's family claimed they had no information about Choi's whereabouts. This indifferent attitude caused a major conflict between the two families. Choi's family repeatedly pleaded with the police to continue the search, while Jeon's family insisted they drop the investigation. The police found this highly suspicious, leading them to focus their attention on Jeon's family. It was strange that the father wanted to end the investigation after receiving just one text message from his son. He was clearly hiding something. Naturally, the police ignored Jeon's father's unreasonable request and proceeded with the investigation. They searched every major hospital in Busan, but found no record of Choi or Jeon being admitted or receiving treatment. They then checked the couple's cell phone locations and found that neither of them had been near any hospitals. GPS tracking revealed that on May 31st, when Jeon called Choi's theater group, his phone was located near their apartment complex. On June 2nd, After Jeon sent the final message to his father, his phone signal was lost. The last recorded location before the signal disappeared was near his father's home. Later that night, at approximately 1:54 a.m., Choi's phone signal also vanished, but the location was not in Busan. Instead, it was traced to Gangdong district in Seoul. Busan and Seoul are several hundred kilometers apart. Since their car had never left the parking lot, how did they get there? Did they travel together, or did only Choi go to Seoul? Just as the investigation was hitting a dead end, a new clue emerged, making the case even more complex. The police discovered that Jeon had a long history with a woman named Jeon, his first love. The two had fallen in love during high school and dated for several years. They had been childhood friends, but when it came time to discuss marriage, their parents strongly opposed the relationship. In the end, they were forced to separate. After their breakup, Jeon was devastated and soon entered a whirlwind marriage. When Jeon found out, he was heartbroken. He never expected the woman he loved to marry someone else so quickly. However, Jeon and her husband divorced just a month and a half after getting married. The reason? Her husband caught her having an affair with Jeon. After the divorce, Jeon was deeply saddened and needed emotional support, but Jeon suddenly disappeared and could no longer be contacted. 2 years later, Jeon met her current husband, and the two got married and settled in Norway. Around the same time, Jeon met and married Choi. However, Jeon was never able to truly sever ties with his first love, Jeon. He even purchased a separate SIM card exclusively for contacting her. Before Jeon and Choi got married, in 2015, Jeon's daughter with her second husband passed away due to illness in Norway. This tragedy left Jeon deeply distressed and filled with rage. She suffered a psychological breakdown and blamed Jeon, believing that he had ruined her life and that her daughter's death was somehow his fault. Jeon demanded an enormous sum of money from Jeon as compensation. She wanted to use the money to cryogenically preserve her daughter's body, hoping that in the future medical advancements could bring her back to life. A month before Jeon and Choi's wedding, Jeon went into a frenzy. She made repeated harassing phone calls to Choi, warning her that if she dared to marry Jeon, she would make her life miserable. This took a heavy emotional toll on Choi, who was about to get married. Unable to endure the harassment, she eventually had to change her phone number. During their investigation into Jeon, the police discovered that she had returned to South Korea on May 5th. When questioned, she claimed that she had returned to handle funeral arrangements for her daughter, while her husband did not return to South Korea until May 14th. After arriving in South Korea, Jeon displayed a series of unusual behaviors. She did not return home, nor did she stay in a hotel. Instead, she chose to stay in saunas and small guest houses, places that did not require identification, making it impossible to track her movements. During her time in South Korea, she exclusively used cash instead of credit cards, further avoiding detection. The police also discovered another shocking fact. Jeon returned to South Korea at the same time Choi was pregnant. A few days after Jeon and Choi disappeared, on June 7th, Jeon and her husband abruptly left South Korea, 10 days earlier than originally planned. In summary, as soon as Choi became pregnant, Jeon returned to South Korea and lived in secrecy for a week. Then, immediately after Jeon and Choi went missing, Jeon suddenly left the country. Jeon's behavior was highly suspicious and indicated a possible motive for a crime. Since she had already left South Korea, the Busan police could only request a red notice from Interpol. With assistance from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the extradition process for Jeon was initiated. However, Jeon hired legal representation to fight the extradition request. Due to the complexity of extradition procedures and the lengthy legal process, the whereabouts of the missing couple remained unknown. Additionally, South Korean police lacked sufficient concrete evidence to ensure a successful extradition. At this point, Jeon's father not only urged the police to stop investigating, but also requested that major media outlets in South Korea refrain from publishing any photos of his son. In contrast, Choi's family had the opposite stance. They were desperate to find their daughter as soon as possible. They believed that making the photos public was the only way to increase the chances of locating her. This explains why, in all media-released photos, only Choi's face was shown, while Jeon's face was obscured. In September 2016, 4 months after the couple's disappearance, a hospital nurse reported a suspicious incident to the police. Someone had attempted to obtain a prescription for antidepressants using Choi's personal information. The police reviewed surveillance footage and discovered that the person in question was none other than Jeon's father. Jeon's father was now a prime suspect. He likely knew the full truth about the case. However, due to the lack of conclusive evidence, the police could not charge him based on suspicion alone. As of today, the 30 million Korean won the couple had in their bank account at the time of their disappearance remains untouched, and no new information about their whereabouts has surfaced. On March 11, 2019, South Korean authorities announced that they would pursue the case to the very end and called on the media for assistance. The police publicly released the couple's real names, ages, and photographs in hopes of uncovering new leads. To this day, South Korean police have not abandoned the investigation. They continue to appeal to the public, hoping that collective efforts will help locate the missing couple. Regardless of the truth, there is still hope that both of them are safe. This remains one of South Korea's most mysterious unsolved cases in recent years, filled with suspicious behavior from Jeon's family and his ex-lover, conflicting evidence, strange circumstances, and the couple's complete disappearance without a trace. These unresolved contradictions have turned this case into an enduring enigma. In 1991, in Tamura District, Fukushima Prefecture, Japan, a mysterious disappearance of a 7-year-old girl occurred right in front of 8 family members. How could such a bizarre event happen, and what is the truth behind this case? Let's find out. In Funahiki Town, located in Tamura City, there was a family named Ishii who lived in a 2-story house. The first and second floors had separate entrances, allowing independent access. The head of the household was Kenichi Ishii, 37 years old, who owned a local construction business. His company was based in their home, a common practice in Japan at the time, as it helped save office rental costs and commuting time. His wife, Yoshiko Ishii, 27 years old, had been married to him for 8 years, and they had 3 children. Their eldest daughter, Ishii Mai, 7 years old, their second son, Ishii Kito, 6 years old, and their youngest son, Ishii Ryo, who had just turned 1. Additionally, the household included the grandfather, 74 years old, the grandmother, 66 years old, and Mai's cousin, Ryoko. Since Ryoko's parents divorced when she was in middle school, she had moved in with the Ishii family. The family was financially stable and well off, without any concerns about daily living expenses. However, one night, 7-year-old Ishii Mai suddenly disappeared, shattering the peace of the entire household. On Wednesday, July 24, 1991, 2 young girls came over to play at the Ishii house. One was in 4th grade and the other was in 2nd grade. They were the daughters of Yoshiko's friend. Including the 3 Ishii children, there were 5 kids playing together all day at the house. With their parents' permission, the 2 visiting girls planned to stay overnight. Besides those mentioned, another person present was Kazuya Tamagawa, 22 years old, an employee at Kenichi Ishii's company and Ryoko's boyfriend. Due to the nature of his job, he occasionally stayed overnight at the company, which meant staying at the Ishii house. That afternoon, the children went to his room to play video games. Since he had work to finish, he decided to stay at the Ishii house that night. At 8:50 p.m., Mai's father took his 2 sons upstairs to their bedroom. Normally, Kenichi and Yoshiko slept in the same room with their 3 children, but because of the 2 visiting girls, there wasn't enough space. They had prepared an adjacent room with a double bed for the 3 girls. By that time, the 2 boys had already fallen asleep, while the 3 girls, enjoying their summer vacation, were allowed to chat for a while before going to sleep. Mai's grandparents lived on the 1st floor. That evening, instead of going to bed, they decided to go to a nearby karaoke bar, a popular form of entertainment in Japan at the time. At 9 p.m., they noticed that Tamagawa's room on the 1st floor had its lights off, suggesting he had already gone to bed. At 9:20 p.m., Mai's grandparents called a taxi and left for the karaoke bar. Before leaving, they carefully locked the first-floor entrance. At 9:30 p.m., after playing in the living room on the second floor all day, the three girls finally became sleepy. Mai led her two friends to her parents' room, where she saw that her father and two younger brothers were already asleep. Remembering that her mother had told her to sleep in the adjacent room that night, she took her two friends there. The two visiting girls were very fond of Mai, so they let her sleep in the middle, with one friend on each side. Shortly after, all three of them fell into a deep sleep. Mai's mother had been busy all day. Seeing that the children were already asleep, she continued with her household chores, such as tidying up toys and preparing food for the next day. At 10:30 p.m., she entered the girls' room, adjusted their blankets, and turned off the lights. No one expected that this would be the last time she ever saw her daughter. Afterward, she went to the second-floor bathroom. While she was there, she suddenly heard the sound of the downstairs door opening. Finding it unusual, she wondered if her in-laws had returned early or if someone had gone outside. She looked out the window and saw Tamagawa hurriedly leaving the house alone. Assuming he was going out for a drink with friends, she didn't pay much attention. After using the restroom, she went downstairs to take a bath on the first floor. While she was bathing, she again heard the sound of the door opening, followed by footsteps going upstairs. At 11 p.m., after finishing her bath, she was too exhausted from the day's work. She went to the second-floor living room, turned off the lights, and then went to bed with her husband and two sons, completely forgetting about the footsteps she had heard earlier. At 2 a.m., Mai's grandparents returned from the karaoke bar. To their surprise, the door was unlocked, even though they had locked it before leaving. After entering the house and locking the door again, they went to Tamagawa's room to ask if he had left the door open, but he was nowhere to be found. The elderly couple found this odd. Before leaving, they had clearly seen that Tamagawa had turned off the lights to go to sleep. Why had he gone out? And why had he left the door unlocked? It seemed unusually careless. Feeling uneasy, they went upstairs to ask their son if he knew where the employee had gone in the middle of the night. However, Ishii, half asleep, mumbled, "I'll check in the morning," seemingly unaware of the situation. At 4:30 a.m., Mai's father woke up to start his workday. Since he worked in the construction industry, he was used to waking up early. His office was on the second floor. When he entered the office, he noticed the door was unlocked. However, he didn't think much of it, as he had forgotten to lock it before, and the neighborhood was generally safe. Kenichi Ishii simply sat down and began working as usual. At 5:32 a.m., the two girls who had slept with Mai the previous night woke up and realized that Mai was missing. Panicked, they left the room and asked the adults. Mai's father was the first to learn of her disappearance. Alarmed, Kenichi Ishii immediately woke up the entire family. Everyone searched frantically, looking in every corner of the house, but Mai was nowhere to be found. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Kenichi Ishii called the police. After the police arrived and took statements, they pieced together the situation. Tamagawa, who was supposed to have stayed at the Ishii house that night, had gone out for unknown reasons without informing anyone and had not returned by morning. The Ishii family believed that he was the one who had taken Mai. While the police were documenting the case, at 6:30 a.m., Tamagawa finally returned home. The officers immediately restrained him and demanded to know where he had taken Mai. To their surprise, Tamagawa simply responded, "I don't know anything." When asked where he had gone the night before, Tamagawa explained. Around 10 p.m., he had gone out to use a public payphone to call a friend in Koriyama, a city in Fukushima Prefecture, about 15 miles away from Tamura. During the call, he sensed that his friend was in a bad mood, so he decided to go to Koriyama immediately to check on him. He got into his car, but the battery was dead. He tried everything, but the car wouldn't start. Running out of options, he headed to the train station to catch a train, but by the time he arrived, the last train had already departed. With no other choice, he took a taxi to Koriyama at around 11:30 p.m. However, When he arrived at the meeting place, his friend never showed up. He searched the area, but found no sign of him. Exhausted, he decided to sleep on a bench outside a department store for the rest of the night. The next morning, he took the first train back to the company. After hearing his account, the police found his actions highly suspicious and detained him for further questioning. Through a series of investigations, the police uncovered the following key details. Mai was a very timid child. She was afraid of the dark, never went to the bathroom alone at night, and always slept in the same room with her parents and younger brothers. This was the first time she had ever slept apart from her parents, making it highly unlikely that she would have left the room on her own. Someone had either taken her out or lured her away. Tamagawa was the only outsider in the house that night, apart from the two visiting girls. While Mai's grandparents had also been out, it was unthinkable that an elderly couple would kidnap their own granddaughter, and there was no motive to suggest they would do so. This left Tamagawa as the only suspect. Mai's cousin, Ryoko, had an alibi. She was staying at her mother's house in Koriyama, and there was evidence to prove it. The two visiting girls gave an alarming statement. They remembered hearing a man's voice speaking to Mai in the room that night, but couldn't recall exactly what was said. Both of them confirmed that a man had entered the room. One of the girls made another shocking claim. She said that while they were playing video games in Tamagawa's room earlier that day, they overheard him asking Mai, "Do you want to go out and play with me tonight?" However, the police dismissed this particular statement. They suspected that Mai's mother had influenced the girls to say this, so they did not accept it as formal evidence. The police searched the Ishii residence, but aside from the fingerprints of those who lived there, they found no fingerprints belonging to any outsiders. They also brought in police dogs to track Mai's scent. The dog followed her scent to the front entrance on the first floor, then stopped. This suggested that Mai had walked to the door and was either picked up or forcibly taken into a vehicle. A nearby resident reported seeing a white car parked on the street that night with its hood open and someone trying to start the engine. They assumed the car had broken down and thought nothing of it, but by the following morning, the car was gone. The police checked with all the neighbors living near the Ishii house and confirmed that none of them owned a white car. This led to the strong possibility that the car belonged to a stranger and was likely used to take Mai away. Based on these clues, Tamagawa became the primary suspect and the only person under investigation. However, at the time, the Ishii family did not want to press charges against him. They only wanted to find their daughter. The family begged him to reveal Mai's whereabouts, but Tamagawa stubbornly insisted that he knew nothing and that he had really gone to meet his friend that night, as he had previously stated. Just when everyone was convinced that Tamagawa was the culprit, the Japanese police released him after 2 weeks of investigation. The reason? 2 witnesses provided testimony, proving that he was not present at the crime scene. The first witness was a taxi driver who testified that he drove Tamagawa to Koriyama that night. The second witness was a street vendor in Koriyama who confirmed seeing Tamagawa sleeping on a bench near a department store around midnight and even having a brief conversation with him. With these 2 witnesses, Tamagawa's alibi was confirmed, proving that his statement was truthful. The last time Mai's mother saw her daughter was at 10:30 p.m., the same time that the taxi picked up Tamagawa and drove him to Koriyama between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Given the short time frame, there was no way for him to kidnap Mai and transport her away before leaving for Koriyama. Additionally, the Japanese police concluded that Tamagawa was not lying based on his statements and full cooperation at the police station. As a result, Tamagawa was released. With the only suspect now cleared, the case was left unsolved, and Mai's fate remained a mystery. Mai's father, Kenichi Ishii, remained convinced that Tamagawa was responsible for his daughter's disappearance. According to Kenichi, Tamagawa had a habit of drinking alcohol, and Kenichi had reprimanded him multiple times for it. On the day of the incident, Tamagawa had originally planned to go on a short vacation with his girlfriend, but Kenichi had forced him to stay and handle company matters instead. In reality, the relationship between the 2 men had never been good. If it weren't for Tamagawa dating Kenichi's niece, he would have been fired long ago. This led Kenichi to believe that Tamagawa had secretly held a grudge for a long time, and decided to take revenge by abducting his daughter. Kenichi also pointed out that Tamagawa's car battery had been dead for a long time, meaning this was not the first time it had failed. Recently, he had frequently used company vehicles to go out. So why, on that particular night, did he suddenly choose to drive his personal car instead? However, these were merely theories and assumptions from the father. There was no concrete evidence to prove his claims, making it difficult for the police to accept them as fact. Mai was a small, lively, and adorable girl. Since her disappearance, the Ishii family has never been able to live a normal life. Her father, overwhelmed with grief, decided to shut down his company, dedicating all his energy to finding his daughter. In his desperation, he even hired people to secretly monitor Tamagawa 24/7, but nothing suspicious ever surfaced. His hope of finding Mai grew thinner each day, as there was no one else who could have committed the crime, and the police had reached a dead end. After the incident, Tamagawa himself suffered deeply. The Ishii family firmly believed he was the one who took Mai, yet he maintained that he was innocent and had done nothing wrong. Later, he agreed to appear on a television program to express his feelings. However, his words on the show shocked the public when he stated, "I will tell the truth when the time comes." What did he mean by that? Did he actually take Mai, or did he know who took her? Now, 34 years have passed, and he still has not revealed the truth. The massive search effort involved 3,900 police officers and investigations into more than 6,000 locations, including businesses, residences, vehicles, hillsides, and rivers. But despite all efforts, nothing was ever found. On July 24, 2006, after 15 years of searching, the statute of limitations on prosecution expired, yet Mai was never found, and the truth remained a mystery. This case has become one of Japan's most infamous unsolved disappearances. If Mai is still alive, she would now be 41 years old. Although media outlets have circulated her childhood photos for decades, it would be nearly impossible to recognize her as an adult. The chances of finding her are extremely slim. This was not a random crime. It had to have been carefully planned in advance. But why did the perpetrator choose July 24th? Because that was the only night Mai was sleeping alone, away from her parents. It was the perfect opportunity. I truly hope that Mai is still alive somewhere and can reunite with her family one day.